Well, maybe this will be a question for all of you, but for you specifically, you mentioned how over the course of writing 600 pages, you changed as a person writing. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on that.
Sure, thank you. It wasn't the fact of changing that caused me to try and write ahead and lay down some milestones. But the anticipation of it, because obviously I hadn't changed before writing. And it turned out I did. I did change it. It's just you do change over 4 or 5 years. Also, the ear changes because you're reading the thing you're writing. So there's this kind of feedback mechanism, and you don't have quite the same. For instance, the tone. You're not discovering the tone as you are at the beginning. So your ear is also changing. So that's another reason why I did that. I hope that's.
And then, did you actually change at page 600 versus page 1? Or after year 5?
Because of the book? Oh no, I'm talking about just changing as a human being. But just changing because you're reading stuff all the time and you're working on something. We evolve.
Right.
I changed it. So that's what I mean. But the novel itself changing me, yes, and that it's wrapped up. It's hard to kind of dance and dance from all that. Any others have some thoughts about this? Hey, I'm a new guy, by the way. This is a debut novel.
I wonder if I do this, if there will be more questions. Does anybody have anything they want to ask one of the authors? Yes.
Hi. The panel description mentions that you're all pretty well known in your home countries, and along the same lines of language and communication, can you just talk about, have your books been published in, I guess, the major language of your home country? How does translation into English affect anything in terms of meaning? Affect the meaning and perception? And even maybe your relationship to it as well?
Okay. I don't like this translation. I don't want, and I speak English. I don't want to imagine what happens to translations of my books to, Serbo-Croatian or Swedish. English, at least, I can see the horror. I was sad, and I read the translation, and I felt like, what has she done, this bitch? This almost sexless bitch. To my sexy, exuberant, sparkling book. And her poor English. I want my book translated to English to sound as if it has been written in English, as if it's some wonderful author whose English is a mother tongue wrote this book. And it looks like, you read translated books when they're badly translated, you know it. It's irritating. You know it. It's such a boring story that I don't want to tire you. I had no control because I didn't care, because I didn't think at the time that it will go, it will be actually published in the United States. I thought it just translated into English to be able for Major to make it easier to sell it in European countries. And so it was just, a requisite, she just used it to let other publishers read it and translate it into Serbo-Croatian. But a day came a few months ago, and she rings me and she says, hey, it's going to be published in the United States, America. And I say, okay. And she says, and then she goes, you're invited to pay festival, you have to, you should be reading some, extras of the book, some parts. And I say, okay, so I'll read it. And I read the translation. And I go, and I say, I'm 47 years old. I can have a nervous breakdown. I can. But I don't want to do it together. So I said, I want to have a nervous breakdown. I don't care. In any case, Americans don't read translated literature. So, and with my publisher here, they're so modest, and he only wants to translate. He lives in Ireland, and he wants only to translate quality literature, and doesn't care if someone buys it or not. So I said, well, my shame will be hidden most of the time. So I relax and I enjoy myself and the rest of the time. I love New York.
Anyone else? Or does
I was going to ask you if your lawyer was here, but I'm wondering if your doctor. I was going to ask you if your lawyer was here, but now I think that's
My lawyer?
Yeah.
So, but why? And if yes,
yeah.
if it was.
No, I'm not going to ask.
No, you. Okay. No.
By the way, I'm on the billing. I'm Bangladesh's Zia Haider Rahman. I was born in Bangladesh, and that's proven by a statement in my British passport. So this book just came out in the US for the first time, in English. I wrote it in English. I translated, there are two versions. There's a US English version and a UK English version.
Is it very different?
Never do that. By the way, never do that, especially with this, because there's serial commerce and mine.
But
This is on
if you have a
TV.
translator who's British, he'll translate it, usually when you translate thing into English, you don't even ask if the translator is British or American, but there are two different languages, so the slang is different. So many different things. I wonder how it sounds when a British translator translates into English and then it goes to the United States.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting
Not
point.
if you're originally British because the Americans love the British and they think it's a good thing. But if a British translator translates from Serbo-Croatian, it's strange. It creates a strange effect.
I had a British translator who translated my book, but I actually, I like my translator. I mean, I think she's a lovely woman. And she's good, but what I did after, and I think that's partly also meeting and revisiting the book in a different language, and 2 years, you talked about change, 2 years after that I had written it and published it, so I actually took it back into the cutting room. I rewrote all of the I rewrote a big part of it. The translation, but then I also started rewriting myself, but then I also rewrote parts of myself. I thought, well, now I have a chance, I can do stuff with the scenes.
That's the sort of thing that gets me into trouble in airports. Me, apparently, I'm not sure how
Okay.
Oh, it's you!
Let's get a question here.
Hi, this question is for Maxim, and I wonder, in writing this book, Red Love, what was the most surprising thing for you to learn about your family that you didn't anticipate going into the project?
Oh, there were many surprising things, and the most surprising thing it was that my grandfather was actually working for the KGB, and I didn't know that. And,
The Nazi was
no. The French one. French resistance. And
the French resistance? The Nazi?
no, actually not.
Was in the French resistance?
Yes, two grandfathers, two different stories, and that's why we came to this Romeo and Juliet setting with my parents, because the Nazi against Nazi.
Some biography.
Yeah. The cast is nice. The cast is nice, And so I discovered when I watched the Stasi files from my grandfather, they mentioned that he worked for another agency before, and my grandfather explained me that it was better to work for the KGB because they were professional, and they were more professional than the Stasi, you know?
No,
KGB.
that's not true.
No, that's what he was thinking. But it was a sad story because my grandfather moved after the war. He came back to Germany and as a French officer, and he started to work as a journalist. And he discovered that many of the new responsible persons for the secret service, for the Western Secret Service, was actually Nazis, high Nazi Gestapo officers. And he came to his chief editor and told him the story, and the chief editor, it was a communist journal, said to him it was very interesting, but we don't publish it, but we use it. So she started to kann man die erpressen?
Blackmail. Blackmail.
To blackmail them, and in this way he started his KGB career in Düsseldorf, and the sad part of the story was that he met somebody who was responsible for the Gestapo in Orléans, in South France. And my grandfather was also in South France in resistance. And he worked with this guy after the war. And my grandfather, and with this Gestapo, this is former Gestapo officer. And because it was so important for him to serve to his communist comrades that he forgot his own story, and this Gestapo guy had shoot him if they met in French during the war, and I didn't understand how it was able to do that, how it was able to cooperate with a murderer, and but apparently to serve the communism cause was much more important than his own life. That was a very touching story I learned along this Stasi fight.
Okay.
Now he's dead.
But how did he perceive himself after the war? Like, was he angry with himself? Did he feel he did something against God and the human race, or did he just think it was war and that's what had to be done?
No, he started to build up the East German state. That was his mission after the war. He understood, okay, we have to build something up new.
How did he perceive his actions during the war?
Sorry?
How did he perceive his action during the war?
I don't know. In this age, they didn't ask themselves those questions. I think they just did things who was necessary.
I'm sure
Yeah, perhaps, but not
I'm
with
really
me.
sorry for using this again, but thank you so much, all of you, for doing